All right, everybody. Hope everybody is having a good day. And let me just start off the video by saying that I want to try to not come off here as a hypocrite where I say I'm not going to do something, but then I do something and it looks like I'm only doing it for the sake of, clickbait or views. Because about 5 days ago, I made a post on my community tab about the interview Monique did with T.S. Madison, and I will leave a link to that interview in the comment section below from the YouTube channel Fox Soul. The interview itself is a little under 17 minutes long, where Monique talks about the Netflix lawsuit as well as the Tyler Perry drama. And as a result, Tyler Perry was trending, Monique was trending, Oprah was trending. And in my post, and of course you could check it out on the community tab, but I'll just go ahead and kind of read through it real quick. I said that a lot of people sent me a link to Monique's recent interview because they wanted my thoughts on the subject. It seems that every 5 to 7 months, the situation resurfaces, resulting in Oprah, Tyler Perry, Lee Daniels, Precious, Monique, and all related topics, people or parties trending online with people giving their 2 cents. At this point, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I have nothing to add to the conversation that I haven't already said in previous videos. I will say that this is one of the best Monique interviews regarding the situation because T.S. Madison did such a great job with letting Monique speak, letting Monique get her points across, and I stand by what I said. This was a fantastic interview on the subject. Now, whether or not I agree with her stances is one thing, but I do feel that without her husband talking more than she does in interviews, Monique is certainly more tolerable. Seriously, I prefer to see this version of Monique speaking as opposed to saying, "Yes, daddy, tell him, daddy." Like that, I don't really take that seriously. Now, I go on to say, I pray she moves on. Then I jokingly added, unlike Karen on Sisters when it comes to Zach, because this is certainly turning into a Janet Hubert situation where it took decades for her to get a public apology. However, she spent all the time between her departure from The Fresh Prince to the reunion special bashing Will every chance she got, either on camera, during interviews or just online in general. These billionaires and pillars in the black film and entertainment industry aren't going to say anything. I wish Monique the best of luck in her future projects because she's funny and talented. However, I feel like she's stunting her own growth by harboring this grudge. Brush the dust off your sandals and keep it moving, because it would be a shame for the younger generation who didn't grow up with things like the Monique Talk Show, the Queens of Comedy, the Parkers, to only know you for being the black woman who wanted everyone to boycott Netflix instead of the talented actor and comedian we all know that you are. Now, my post, over 300 likes, about 20 something comments, and some people, agreed with what I was saying. Other people felt that, it was definitely Tyler that needs to give her an apology, and, because he wronged her, or it's just one of those things where I don't know. I don't think I see where you're coming from, Jeremy, or I don't feel like you understand where Monique is coming from. But there was a video on Comedy Hype, their channel. They posted about the Monique and Tyler Perry situation. And I posted a comment on there as well. 4 quick bullet points. Number 1, if you listen to those recorded phone calls, then you'll understand why Tyler only wants to meet with Monique and not her and her husband together. If you go back and listen to the phone calls that, they recorded and then released to the public, you could definitely tell that Tyler called in the spirit of making things right, but her husband and her, they just like tag team and doubled up on him and basically overpowering him or trying to overpower Tyler on the phone call. Number 2, if you record a private conversation and then release it to the public, I'm done with you. Number 3, for everybody saying that it's Tyler, Oprah, and Lee's fault that she got blackballed in Hollywood, Remember that Monique had a deal with Netflix that she turned down and made a public spectacle, so you can't really say someone is blackballed when they had an opportunity with one of the biggest streaming platforms available to the masses. And number 4, I'm not saying Tyler, Oprah, and Lee did or didn't do her wrong. What I'm saying is that she has to realize that begging and calling up, not calling out people, isn't going to make them apologize, any sooner. Monique just needs to keep pressing forward. This isn't helping anyone. And that spurred about 16 responses as well, varying from people saying, you know what, hey man, you're right, to, well, what, are black women just supposed to let, people walk all over them when they are, getting, blacklisted, blackballed, underpaid, that kind of stuff. It's just the fact that I'm doing this video to say, you can't force somebody to give you an apology. I mean, sure, like I said, the Janet Hubert thing, that got squashed, but look how long it took. And yes, you can notice that after the beef was squashed during the special, Janet Hubert has had a lot more acting opportunities. But somebody actually left a really great comment. I think it was Robert SSM73. They said, well, actually, I think Arthur J.C. Carpenter left the original comment. They don't owe her an apology at all. The whole thing started because she didn't feel like she had to do what everyone else on the same movie had to do as far as publicity. She thought she was somehow special and that she should be paid for her public appearance when no one else on that film was paid for each appearance. Then she went on to trash them publicly on stage. Monique is funny and talented, but she did not handle the situation with class or integrity, and she does not deserve an apology. She should be apologizing to them. From people inside the situation, the consensus is that her husband, who she also expected to be paid when appearing with her at those appearances, was the problem. I will note that she didn't have the issue she had before him. Now, her being blackballed has to do with her being difficult when she goes on sets, and it has been said that on several sets, she has been on since marrying her husband and making him her manager, that she had become increasingly difficult, demanding things that no other celebrity, ones bigger than her, have ever demanded. She is in her own way. Then going to Robert's response to that, exactly, the award buzz went to her and her husband's head. Even though this is a different subject, the same thing with Janet Hubert happened when she brought her personal life into work and thinking it was a justifiable reason to act the way she did. And when the show responded and let her go, it was somebody else's fault. So, yeah, I do feel like, I feel like there are many layers to this discussion. I know for me personally, I don't know Monique. I don't know her husband. I don't know Tyler Perry. I don't know Oprah. I don't know Lee Daniels. All I know is what we've heard from, well, Monique, because I will say, like I said, this interview was great. Her story hasn't changed, since the beginning when she first came out about it, about over a decade ago. But that's the thing. It's been over a decade or so. There are people who are, not really confident in supporting Monique because it's like, is this only activism? Is this side only showing up because you feel like you got, stiffed out of, a check, or because of the fact that you've been labeled difficult to work with? So as a result, that coming from the mouths of a Lee Daniels or a Tyler Perry or an Oprah Winfrey closed off a lot of doors to Monique. But I will say that looking at, for example, Vlad TV, he talked about how he had an interview with Monique and that ended up pretty bad. I believe that he talked about it on Godfrey's podcast, and I will try to link that in the comment section below as well. So you'll see the first link, the T.S. Madison interview, and then I will actually see, well, I don't know if I can use this clip without getting copyrighted, so let me put it this way. I'll insert this clip in the video, and I'm giving credit to it. But if it turns out that I can't use it due to copyright, then I'll have to remove it. So if you don't see a clip in post when I post this video, then you know it was copyright.
when we sit down and do interviews, like, with you already know, we have people sign release forms.
That's right.
Right? And sometimes people are like, well, I don't want to sign, but, I'll just give you a verbal release. Yeah, I give you permission, and then that's it. We're done. We're cool. But her husband was like, well, we just want to review the release form first. And I was like, I don't know. He's like, no, it's not going to be a big deal. I'm just going to review it. Cool. Right. I'm like, all right, fine. So we filmed the interview.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, hey, where's the release form? Oh, my lawyer wants to look at it. Okay, cool. We're waiting like a week. We're waiting 2 weeks. We got to like 3 weeks, and the lawyer responded.
Right. And
they sent a modified release form, and the release form said that they own the footage, and they're going to license it to me for a year.
What?
And I'm like,
wow.
You got to be kidding me.
What the f? They went and what?
Yeah, and I'm like,
no.
We paid for the filming. You sat down with us, and I'm like, does Breakfast Club own the footage? Do you own Breakfast Club's footage?
Right.
Do you own Sway in the Morning's footage?
Right.
Do you own all these other talk shows footage? I know you don't, because I know these organizations, and they don't do that type of shit.
Yep.
They're like, well, we want control. The only way for us to control it is to own it, and we'll let you use it for. And I'm like,
oh hell no.
I'm like, look, okay, if you only want us to air it for a certain amount of time, that's fine. If you want certain things out, that's fine. But we can't give you ownership of the footage. We filmed it. It's our footage. Right. Nope. We want ownership. We're literally going back and forth for weeks. And then it was like, my lawyer's like, why just put it out then? See what happens. Put it out, cease and desist.
Wow.
So, and she was like, well, if you want to avoid a lawsuit, you should probably just take it down. So this really dope interview that, never came out.
I really wanted to see it,
because they wanted to pull that funny bad business type shit after the fact, trying to own footage that I filmed myself that they will never own.
Am I crazy? But the husband seems like he's part
it's the husband.
Of a lot of this shit.
It's the husband.
Monique actually gives great interviews. She's a very thorough speaker. Yeah. She's very honest. Yeah. I did the movie Fat Girls with Monique, and I've known Monique as far as the comedy circuit when I was in Chicago. And Monique, to me, has always been awesome. Like, she's a strong chick, but I just think
it's her husband.
Yeah, because when you're in a relationship, you change a little bit.
Well, and you have situations where you have someone who is trying to prove that they're valuable by trying to play hardball with people and trying to do these. See, baby, I'm looking out for you.
Monique built this shit on her own, bro.
Like, you looking out for her by creating a really bad situation with a fairly sizable media outlet when you didn't have to. You don't with Comedy Hype. I don't think they don't own Comedy Hype's footage.
That's so weird.
Like, they really tried to Debo my intellectual property.
Wow.
Okay, so basically, to break it down, Monique's husband was trying to strong arm Vlad to gain ownership of the interview. Basically, this goes back to May 2018. I remember when the Vlad interviews first posted up, because I think that I became aware of Vlad's content around the time that I had quit my job at the call center in late 2017. So, I've been keeping up with Vlad TV for quite a while. From Godfrey's first interview, Lord Jamar, DL Hughley, TK Kirk, you name it. I don't watch all the interviews, but I only watch the ones where, there are a certain regulars who, I become accustomed to. And then, people who come up there to talk about their histories, like the late John Witherspoon, who, the Vlad TV interview with him, probably one of my favorite, if not the best John Witherspoon interview I've ever seen. Morris Day, Leon was on there, aka David Ruffin, and the list goes on. But regardless, it was, mid 2018, Vlad began posting a few of the interview segments, and a few days later, the videos were removed, and I was wondering why, but eventually it was revealed that, Monique was trying to steal the content. Says Monique's husband is responsible for her bad reputation. Vlad mentions that her husband's behavior was a bit sketchy because at first he didn't even want to sign the release form before filming of the interview began. Vlad thought it was a bit odd, but he moved forward in good faith. He says the release form was sent weeks after filming the interview with a lot of modifications to it. The form said, we're going to modify this release form and we are going to say that Monique owns the footage and will license it out for a year. Not only did Vlad find the request shocking, but he also says it's unethical considering he was the one who paid for everything, the lights, the camera, the film, the project time. Basically, this was an interview Vlad paid in order to produce. So how in the world does Monique own the footage? We filmed it, that it's our footage. And Vlad has interviewed hundreds, if not that. He's had thousands of interviews at this point, and this was the first time there's been someone who has been this difficult to work with. Hint, hint. He tried to negotiate with Monique's legal team and Hicks, aka her husband, even offering to edit the footage to their liking, but they would not budge. Vlad's lawyer advised him to begin releasing the footage, but then eventually Monique's team sent a cease and desist to avoid a lawsuit. Vlad removed the interview, and that was pretty much it. So, yeah, he goes on to say that Monique's husband is at fault for her bad reputation. Her husband is the real reason why she's in the situation, or as known as being difficult to work with. You have situations where you have someone who is trying to prove that they're valuable by trying to play hardball with people and spin it as if they're looking out for you. So, yeah, I mean, there are examples outside of the Precious situation where Monique has been shown to be difficult to work with. And I'm not just going to sit here and say, yeah, fire that man and whatnot, but I'll just say the proof is in the pudding, and there have been situations where it feels like her husband's like, her hype man gassing her up after the award for Precious, that, there are seemingly ridiculous demands that are met from him. Like, he goes up into like a business room and, shouts out a bunch of lawyer and manager talk, trying to sound official. But like I said, I urge you, go back and listen to those phone calls between Tyler Perry, Monique, and her husband. And if I can find the link, I'll be sure to put that in the comment section as well. You could definitely tell that Tyler called up in good faith to really make things right. But it definitely felt like anytime he was trying to figure things out for a fair deal, like, hey, I'll get this money together to pay you what you feel you're owed, and we'll move forward, the husband kept butting in and like, he's a preacher or something like that. And I really hope you listen to the phone calls so maybe you can actually get what I'm saying, because to me that really adds more weight to the whole, yeah, this is why I want to meet with just Monique. I mean, think of it this way. Imagine, you are a parent and your child is like 27 years old and they apply to get a job at, Microsoft. I'm just going to basically name out a regular, just a random company. Let's say, oh yeah, my son, he graduated, he's computer science, he did engineering and whatnot. He's going to apply to go to Microsoft, whatever, but he doesn't get the job. He goes for the interview. He doesn't, get the job. But then maybe a few months down the road, hey, you know what? We want to meet with, Jason. I'm just throwing in the name here. We want to meet with Jason again because even though he didn't get picked in the last round of applicants, we might have an open position. So we wanted to do a second interview. Now, why would the parent show up to the interview with the child? It doesn't make sense. It's like, you can drive them there, but you don't have to go in with them because the company wants to meet with, one person. They don't need to meet with, Jason and his parents or his wife or anything like that. So for me personally, it's like, no, it just doesn't make sense to me. So with Tyler saying, he wants the apology as well, I kind of see where he's coming from because of the fact that look at the way she was dragging their names through the dirt, every chance she got in a public setting. I don't want an apology too. But the thing about it is, you got to move on. It's just one of those things where, these people are getting up in age. As we get older, so do they. And I just feel like Monique has really squandered the opportunities that have come her way because maybe it's ego, maybe it's her husband, I don't know. But when enough people say the same thing about you, you got to wonder, is it true or not? And when it comes to Precious, now I'm not saying, hey, make your money, but there are times where you have to do shit that's free. Because think of it this way. Didn't Mary J. Blige just talk about this in a recent interview about the Super Bowl? Like, you don't get, no, artists don't get paid for the Super Bowl. Like, they show up, they do their thing, and what happens after the Super Bowl is what matters. You know, if you put on a hell of a performance, your streaming numbers go up, you get more public appearances, you go out on tour, you put out new music, you basically reap the benefits. It's like you can't pay for that kind of publicity unless you pay for a commercial. But you see what I'm saying, right? It's like you go up there, you show up, you show out, and you reap the benefits afterwards. It's like, I don't know if people get paid for doing this, but like for artists who do documentaries like Unsung on TV1, for example, usually after the interviews, there are a lot of people who see an increase in their streaming, or different movies or shows they were in, they get higher streaming views on their platforms, or even DVD sales, for example. So I feel like going back to the Netflix thing, I always said, wow, I'm shocked that she didn't get at least a couple $1 million as an offer, but the $500K, I knew for me, I think that the biggest thing was Netflix, or should I just say Monique, hearing the word legend and just running with it. I was always in the camp of, if I were in Netflix position, or better yet, let me just say, since I'm a content creator here on YouTube, here on YouTube, over 200,000 subscribers. Genuinely speaking, there are people who ask me, hey, Jeremy, I got a new song, or I got a new channel, or I got this going on, that going on. Can you promote it? Now, for people who look at this as an opportunity, yeah, I can definitely understand. I was in that position when I first started out doing YouTube, or even before that, when I was doing my blog and just running a few Facebook pages. I was always trying to do, the share for share. Like, hey, man, I'll share your page on mine if you share yours on your page. But then that's a naive way to look at it, because think of it this way. Say you have 500 followers on Instagram and you contact someone who has 20,000 followers on Instagram. Obviously, if they share your platform on theirs, you have far more to gain than they do. Meaning that sometimes it's easy to get bent out of shape if somebody's like, nah, I don't want to do that, or I need someone who has maybe at least 5,000 followers before I do like a share for share. And, or, they decide to charge you or charge you more. Like, let's say, okay, there's a YouTuber who has 150,000 subscribers and we agree to collaborate on a video. But then there's somebody with like maybe 500 subscribers and they want to, collaborate on the video. I won't be as inclined to do so because their audience is way smaller than mine. Meaning that if they want to collaborate, there's a good chance I'll probably ask for some sort of like fee, because of the fact that there is a lot more to gain for their end as opposed to mine. Because if we do an interview, I'm the one doing the content, editing and all that stuff. That's work that I got to do. So it's like free advertising for them. In Monique's case, I always saw it from the perspective of Netflix is taking a risk. If there's no way she's going to make Dave Chappelle or Chris Rock money due to the fact that even though they haven't been in the spotlight since, Chris Rock, ever since, everybody hates Chris, people, just think Chris Rock is that show, but he's been going out on tours and whatnot. Dave Chappelle, after the Chappelle show, he was going out on tour, filling in arenas and whatnot. I feel like, and I hate to use this word, but I feel like Monique got a bit lazy after getting that award for Precious, because she just felt that getting the Grammy, or excuse me, the Oscar was like, after I get this Oscar, that's it. The sky's the limit. My pay rate's going to go up. I'm going to get all these opportunities, but it doesn't really work that way, especially in terms of relevancy. When you think of Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock, people's ears perk up like they want to see a special, but nobody's really checking for a Monique special on the same level of Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart. So when I look at it from the perspective of, hey, Netflix is a huge platform. The new generation loves it. And if I get a comedy special up there, there's a good chance that even though I'm only getting less than $1 million, that material will lead to more people looking up my old content, more people coming to check me out if I go on tour. It's just that the way she handled the Netflix situation seems very similar to how she handled the pressure situation. Hey, I'm not going to promote for free. You know, I have other priorities, which is understandable. But were there other cast members aside from Monique who were doing promos for free, you know, after they did their contract and whatnot? That's one thing I want to know. Were there other like cast and crew who even after their contract was up, they still made the appearances and whatnot because they understood being beside Tyler, being beside Lee Daniels, being beside Oprah, that would just put them out there more than just doing the movie. So it's almost like, you know, I just feel like there was some, you know, shooting herself in the foot there. Don't get me wrong, I can understand, you know, not wanting to work for free, but I feel like on any job, whether it's like, you know, for me, call center job, I got one paycheck, but there were times where I was juggling 4 different positions because they were understaffed or, you know, things like that happen. Or, you know, even going back to like fast food when I worked at one summer at Bojangles. Oh, you're hired as cook. Okay, great. But then you got to also wash dishes and then you got to help run the line. And I'm like, but I thought I just got hired to be a cook. You got to do crap that you either don't get paid for or it wasn't in the job description because you understand the bigger payoff here. Like I mentioned the Super Bowl, people assume, oh man, the Super Bowl, they must pay through the nose to get like Bruno Mars there or Mary J. Blige there or whatever. No, it's like free. You do that. You put on a hell of a show and you get the people talking in order to create a wave for a tsunami. Like Monique missed that wave because guess what? Instead of handling things behind closed doors, I mean, it just goes back to the private conversation thing. There are people who are like, you know, because Tyler said he apologized and it had been a year and a half and he didn't do it. Yeah, okay, that's understandable. And yeah, you know, if you want to call him out, you can do it. And then, of course, he might deny it. But to actually record the phone call and release it, that's like a major breach of trust. Just like, you know, when she was calling out Netflix, there are some things you do behind closed doors. It just seems to me that even if, and I've said this for a long time, even if Tyler, Oprah, or, you know, basically this hit list of people who Monique feels have wronged her in some way, shape, or form, came out, apologized. Oh, we're sorry. Oh, she's not difficult to work with, this and that. What exactly is that going to do? Because if you ask me, outside of the Precious situation, looking at the Netflix thing, the Black TV thing, it just seems to me more often than not, Monique has proven herself difficult to work with. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, but that's really all I gotta say. I just really wish that you know, she would realize these are grown people, billionaires. They ain't gonna apologize. Maybe I'm wrong and they will, but it just seems like she's just sitting around waiting for something that's not gonna happen when she could be focusing on so much more. Like, I think it was the Ricky Smiley interview she did a couple years ago. Again, that was another great interview where that was a Monique that I love to see. A Monique who was positive. She was talking about some of the good old days working with Ricky and other projects, other comedians and whatnot. And she was talking about, hey, here's what I got coming up. And that's the Monique I want to talk about. I mean, hear from the Monique who's talking about what's going on. Like, hey, here's my next step in the career. I feel like we've heard far more about, you know, what happened a decade ago. This lawsuit, that lawsuit. Because trust and believe, let's say I work with Hulu or I work with Disney Plus. After the situation Monique went down, after the situation that Monique had with Netflix, I sure as heck wouldn't want to work or offer her anything because I feel like, well, okay, if I present Monique with this deal and then she feels like it's under, you know, hey, I'm worth more than this, then she might tap another actor on the shoulder. And I feel like that was another thing I didn't rock with, the way she was like pocket watching other comedians and I mean, hell, I think she even said how much Whoopi Goldberg was making on The View. It's like, I mean, no, it's like, hey, if you got a slice of pie, don't complain about what the other person next to you got on their plate. You know, it's just one of those things where I feel like if you say certain things, Monique will take it at the value of, hey, you said I'm a legend, so how come I'm not getting that? But the thing is, Monique, Amy Schumer, who I don't think is funny because that's not my brand of comedy. She's been selling out arenas. Didn't she have like a, top selling book, a high grossing movie and whatnot? You don't got that. It's like your success from back in the day doesn't equate to the current generation. Like the current generation that didn't grow up on the Parkers or, the Queens of Comedy and whatnot. So look at all the other famous celebrities, actors, musicians. They reinvent themselves to appeal to the next generation or the current mass of people who are watching streaming services and whatnot. How many, comedians and actors and whatnot from back in the day, they scoff at social media actors, they scoff at social media comedians, but they realize, okay, maybe I need to integrate this into the way I do things. That way I'm known. I go viral for posting this. I'm a meme or whatever. It's just that you have to realize what you did 20 years ago doesn't always apply as relevant to the audience that's, in the present. So that's my biggest thing. I pray that, things work out and she continues to move forward in her career because she's very talented. But to me personally, I don't think the apology is coming. I feel like you shouldn't just wait around for somebody who did you wrong to come back around and apologize to make it right, because that doesn't always happen in regards to business or personal relationships. That's not always the case. So let me know what you think. Do you think that Monique is destructing her own career due to her husband? Do you think that Tyler, Oprah, and Lee will ever come forward and apologize? I'm going to be honest here. If I was in their position and they, Monique was dragging me the way that she's been dragging them all over the past 10 years, I probably wouldn't do it. But then again, I don't know. That's the last time I'm talking about this subject. Talk to y'all later.